Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of The Trial Attorneys. We're here today. We're going to do a follow-up of an earlier episode we did. This is a quickly evolving story, a story that's captured the attention of a lot of people in this country because of the interesting situation, the interesting scenario. Horrible, of course, tragic event happened, but the surrounding circumstances have still unfolding. It's still a tad confusing. Of course, I'm speaking about the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, or the alleged murder of the now arrested alleged perpetrator Luigi Mangione, who, as we did a show earlier, our last show in regards to shooting the CEO as he was leaving his hotel in New York and headed to a conference. So now, not surprisingly, because of federal authorities and New York, which is a large police force, was involved, they've caught him. And that was fairly fast. But from my experience, not surprised that he was caught that fast. Were you surprised that he was caught in such a timely fashion?
No,
No.
based on the evidence.
Yeah.
I think on the last time you made a statement, at first I didn't agree with it, but I agree with you. I think you indicated you believe he wanted to be caught, and I think you're correct.
Yeah. Right. I mean, we're going to get into, so we have the complaint that they filed. Of course, the complaint is the allegations they're charging against him. It's unsealed. We're going to go over that. And they really detailed in regards to their investigation. And they're not even using, they say here, they're not even using everything they discovered, of course, so far. But the timeline is pretty compelling. The name Luigi Mangione is one thing I have noticed about this particular incident. Usually in these types of crimes or alleged crimes, the shooter's name is not really mentioned as much. But in this particular case, I noticed everywhere, everyone's using his name as opposed to just calling him the shooter. Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, in a lot of the mass shootings, they always say, well, we're not going to say his name. We're not going to give him the attention that he wants by putting his name up there. I think because who the victim is.
Right.
And you have a lot of millionaires and billionaires who talk about how they fear for their safety. I'm like, you're a millionaire, you're a billionaire, get security. The average person walking down the street doesn't have security. They don't live in a gated community or in a condo on the 7th floor. So I think, given who the victim is, that they're dealing with the accused differently. And I'm going to give you an example. They did a perk walk on this.
They did. Well, what's a perp walk?
Perk walk is an opportunity for the police to, when they transport him to jail or to court, to do it publicly, right, so people can see who he is. It's like we're showing off the person we captured. Look, you know. Right. In this case, it shows where the accused is surrounded by a SWAT team.
Right.
And basically over his right shoulder is the mayor of the city of New York, Adams, who's under, I guess, federal indictment.
Yes.
But amazingly, and I think that's going to backfire. Because I remember when, I forgot his name, Dylan, is a young white teenager, went into a Baptist church, yes, and shot 9 people doing prayer.
Yes.
He didn't get the perk walk.
He did not.
He got a Whopper.
Correct.
They drove him to a Whopper. Yeah. So my thing is, he didn't have a SWAT team around him. He killed 9 people.
Right.
So it looks bad when you make judgments on how you're going to treat an accused based on who the victim is.
Right. Yes.
And I think all they're doing is making him a more sympathetic, and that's no justification for killing someone. But the reality of the matter is that you're making him a sympathetic person to potential jurors, and you have the force of the mayor and SWAT team members that are out to get this guy.
Yeah, he becomes more of a martyr than anything else in this particular instance. And we'll get into the charges, but New York has thrown around charges of charging them with terror acts, and the DA over there is really adamant about adding these particular charges. Federal authorities, of course, are involved in this case for this one individual and the murder of one person. I think because we've been doing this for so long, and then, of course, where we're from and what we've seen, I would agree with you in that these murders are always horrible, which is obvious. Of course, in a large city like Chicago, various murders happen every day. But what always irks me is that these resources, because we're going to go through it, the resources they use for this one murder, I would argue are not always put into every murder that happens.
Absolutely not.
And people might say, "Oh, that's not fair. You're generalizing." I'm not generalizing. I'm speaking from knowledge. I'm speaking from viewing cases. I'm speaking from viewing cases from both sides, prosecutor and defense attorney. The resources that are put. Sometimes people say, "Well, we don't. It's too many murders." No, it's not. If these resources can be put into this murder of this one human being, then every single murder that happens, there are so many families and families of victims out in the city and many cities who feel like their loved ones' cases were ignored.
Absolutely. And my thing is, they took a lot of detectives off of other murders to pursue this investigation. Mm-hmm. How would you feel? My sister, mother, brother was murdered, and then you take the detective off for this one guy.
Right. One person.
They didn't take detectives off of one prior murder case. Mm-hmm. I'm quite sure it was hundreds of cases.
Right. Yeah. So I'll just call him the shooter. He was extradited from Pennsylvania to New York on December 19th. They extradited him in a helicopter, adding to the spectacle that you're speaking about.
Do you know how much a helicopter costs?
A lot. I would think it's expensive. It's expensive.
He should have been on a Greyhound.
Yeah, that's not a long drive. It's not a long drive from Pennsylvania to New York. I mean, anything could have worked. They could have put him in a train.
Remember, we had the state case. They flew a guy in an airplane. They could have flew him coach.
I know. They could have done anything. But so he faces federal charge, including murder through the use of a firearm and stalking, which could lead to the death penalty. His defense team, led by Mark, I'm going to spell his last name, Agnifilo, and Karen Friedman, and then same last name.
She used to be a federal prosecutor in the Southern District of New York.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Yeah. Wow. They've raised concerns about potential double jeopardy due to overlapping state and federal charges. We discussed this briefly, in our meeting about these particular charges, about double jeopardy, and if it's going to apply with the state and federal charges. Do you think, first of all, what is double jeopardy?
Well, double jeopardy says that you cannot be tried for the same crime twice.
Right.
That's basically what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That governments that government cannot get a second bite at the apple at someone.
Correct. So in this case, we've already seen that the state of New York, which is, of course, state court, a court where there are charges that happen that are following on the laws of New York, and the federal authorities, which follow on the laws of the entire United States, that they both clamored to bring charges against this one individual.
Do you know how expensive it is to investigate and prosecute a murder? That's a lot of money.
It is.
And you're doing it twice?
Yeah. It's a race here. Now, Mangione, I said I won't call him a shooter, but the shooter.
The accused.
The alleged accused. He's detained in MDC, Brooklyn, and it's known for substandard conditions such as rodent infestations and inadequate infrastructure. So it's a normal jail. It's a lot of jails. Notable here, I think that's where Sean Combs is. He's also housed at the MDC. So.
Well, he probably got a lot of money on his books.
Yeah, probably.
The Q's probably does. Well, no, he probably is going to get a lot.
His family has money.
Well, I'm just saying people are sympathetic towards this guy. He's probably got a whole bunch of money in his books.
Yeah. You know, one of the, when the accused, when he was actually apprehended, I remember when we were looking at the facts of the case initially, I was saying to myself, you know, I didn't do it, but I was going to give a kind of a free profile for the police to catch this guy. Because in my opinion, it seemed as though the shooter, he wasn't erratic, I could say. It wasn't unplanned, but it wasn't also it wasn't planned in the way in which he wanted to get away, so he wanted to be caught. But in addition, to me, because of the way everything happened, it seemed like it was someone to me who felt emboldened and grew up entitled. Someone who felt as though they could walk into be in the middle of a large city and commit this crime and actually do it and actually get away with it.
You sound like an FBI profiler, but I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Yeah. So that's why I was going to say.
It's almost an arrogance.
Yes, correct.
You know, Princeton.
Yeah.
Didn't he go to Princeton or something? He was a valedictorian.
One Ivy League school. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Valedictorian, and you know, nice looking kid, and probably got all the girls.
Probably. The internet, on the internet, they like him.
They like him.
They like him.
He's all bodied up.
Yeah,
and, you know,
they like him.
And you know, there are people who think. I remember one. The January 6th women says, "I'm white, blonde hair, blue eyes. I'm not going to prison."
Yeah, I remember that.
And she went to prison.
She did go to prison. She did go to prison. But so that's what made me think about it, because a lot of times, you know, many of our clients, the crimes occur because of a decision they make in the moment.
In the moment, exactly. It's not planned.
No, there's no plan. There's no, determination. I feel wronged in this way, and I want to do it. Even though in many ways it's societal in the ways that they are wronged unknowingly, and it leads people to make particular decisions, in my opinion. But this particular case, I said this person had money because he was able to come to New York and stay, even though he was in hostels. He was able to come to New York and stay. There was no trace of any credit cards, which means he had large amounts of cash. His clothes, the book bag and the shirts he was wearing, people did research and they were expensive. It was an expensive book bag from one of those places, you know, those large stores where people buy camping gear from that we never go into.
Yeah.
We just see them like, oh, it was this big store.
Exactly. We just go and use the payphone.
Yeah, you're right.
I guess I'm telling my age, payphone.
So he had expensive clothing and items. So I said this person is entitled. They have money and they have resources, and they were also able to kind of go around New York and go around these particular areas without raising anyone's suspicions. Now, I would say if a certain person looked particular way, was kind of slinking around New York in a mask,
sitting around with no specific purpose, then they say he's suspicious.
Yep, someone will probably call the police, but not this guy. So I said, well, I think we're looking for a particular type of person here, and
I think you're right.
And it turned out to be correct in this instance. They do the perp walk, but the amazing thing, like you said, he had about 100 supporters gathered outside of the Blair County Courthouse during his extradition hearing, displaying signs like "Free Luigi" and criticizing the health insurance industry.
Well, I think this an incident, and we experienced this, of overcharging.
Yeah.
You know, what's the purpose? Keep it simple. You know, you're saying a terrorist act. One, you're minimizing what terrorism is. Most time, terrorism involves like the slaughter of 20, 30, 100, 1,000 people. It was, unfortunately, one person who killed one person. Mm-hmm. And to say it's a terrorist act, again, you're making this person, they said, look, the government is being mean to him. You know, they're victimizing him. Mm-hmm. This is not necessary. I think there's a tactical blunder. Keep it simple. If you're going to charge him with murder, he fired a gun killing him. Or there's a stalking element to it. I mean, they even said something like in count 1, it says he engaged in conduct that placed that person, meaning the victim, in reasonable fear of death and serious bodily harm. That doesn't make sense. He shot him in the back. Yeah. He didn't even see it coming.
No, he didn't see it. He didn't see it coming.
Just make it simple. You know, murder, he fired a firearm, he killed him.
What happens more often than not is, especially with governmental positions, I think the same kind of people end up in these positions. The same type of person runs for office. The same type of person more often becomes and stays a prosecutor. People that don't think outside of the normal realm of how they think, because these mistakes are made over and over. What you're talking about, these mistakes where they're overcharging, or the way they're painting the narrative at this point may help the accused. These are things they have tunnel vision. They never see it.
Well, I think it's and I'm gonna be as bold enough to say this. As I was a prosecutor, like you said, they all think the same way. Mm-hmm. And when you watch them do a trial, they all sound alike.
They do.
The structure is the same.
They do.
With defense attorneys, we have to be more, like you said, think outside the box. Mm-hmm. They get to the point where they're predictable, you know, and we can anticipate what their argument is going to be.
Yeah. It unfortunately is kind of, I've never worked exactly in a large corporation or anything to that effect. But I would assume that the culture in these kind of places is similar. It gets to the even point. I remember when I was a prosecutor, I like suits that are stylish. You know, I like clothes that are stylish, as Ricky does too. And there were many times where I had supervisors say, "Oh, well, you know, you can't wear that color shirt."
Exactly. Only the supervisor wear the blue shirt, and then everybody else the white shirt. I mean, that is so silly. That has nothing to do with ability or anything like that. And that's what we're talking about. They have this fixed environment and attitude on how to prosecute a case, and they feel they have to stick within that.
Right.
And they don't take into consideration potential jurors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So something else I find interesting here, supporters have launched online campaigns to fund his legal defense. This accused person doesn't need it. He's rich. His family's rich. But they've also, so many people behind him that they started a GoFundMe basically for his legal funds. So,
if the prosecution can't read the room, they're in for a rough time. If you see these people are backing him, you probably want to adjust your strategy a little bit better. Cut out the mayor, cut out all. You have to treat it like a regular murder case. Don't blow it up. I mean, I think in the OJ case, that's a fatal mistake that they did. Just treat it like a murder case. But they wanted to treat it like we're prosecuting this celebrity.
Right.
And at some point, they themselves, whether they wanted it that way, the prosecutors became quote unquote celebrities. You never want it. You want to be neutral.
You do. You do, absolutely.
I think you want to always have the appearance that I want to be fair, not that I'm picking on someone.
Yes. Yeah. So now we have the accused in this particular case has plenty of support, across this country, probably worldwide, in regards to what all of this symbolizes. But another important point that kind of caught my attention was that we didn't hear much about the family getting involved early on. In essence, we didn't hear about the family, at least be reported.
The victim or the
family
accused?
Of the accused, calling, saying, "Oh, I think that's my cousin. I think that's my brother. I think that's my son." But it turned out that his mother, Kathleen, had reported him missing to the San Francisco Police Department November 18th of 2024 because she had lost contact with him since July of 2024. So she had reported him missing. She hadn't seen him. She hadn't talked to him since July. And then later on December 8th, during the investigation, the FBI did end up talking to his mom, and she indicated that the person in the surveillance videos, it could be her son, but she wasn't sure.
Mom ratted him out?
Well, she said she wasn't sure. She wasn't entirely sure. But I'm saying all that to say, one thing that a lot of times I hear from law enforcement in Chicago, in this area, we can't solve crimes because we don't get help from the community, or we don't get help from their family and those sorts of things. But it doesn't seem like his family helped much, but they were still able to figure this out. So I think it's an excuse that's used in order to try to victim blame. You you're shifting the blame back to the family of the person that was murdered or something to that, or the community as a whole. Well, they don't want, no one wants to help us, so how are we supposed to figure these crimes out?
I mean, if the community feels that you're not serving and protecting them, why do you expect them to respond to you?
Correct.
If they feel that you treat them as the enemy, where you may go somewhere else and you treat them differently,
right?
That's, you can't have it both ways.
Nope, absolutely not.
I mean, nobody wants anyone to be killed. I mean, if a police officer is killed, you go to the community and say, help us.
Mm-hmm.
And when someone in the community is killed and we say, help us, and you prioritize another murder based upon who that person is or how famous or how much money in their pocket, people may be hesitant.
Mm-hmm. Human nature is that human beings treat people differently. More often than not, police are supposed to be objective, the law is supposed to be objective, judge is supposed to be objective. But almost all of it, to me, has always been subjective. It depends on who they're in front of. It depends on how they were brought up. It depends on where they're from, what they've seen, that culminate in these decisions that they make on a daily basis. And it's not objective. So it's all this to say that people are treated differently, and we all know this. People are treated differently in the courtrooms.
Exactly.
People are treated differently out in the streets by police. And there's something, and we have to do something about that.
Well, what sticks out, like I said, one of the places I grew up was in West Inglewood, which was not a good place. And after church, I went with my father, who's in a suit. He was a deacon in the church, and he was the treasurer of the church. He had a suit on. We walked to the corner store, and the police jumped out, and I think I was like 7 at the time. Mm-hmm. And they threw my father up against the wall and all this other stuff. And wow. my father's a veteran. Yeah. Fought in the civil rights. And it always bothered me, why are we being treated this way? Mm-hmm. When you could just walk up and say, sir, can I have a conversation with you?
Right.
So, they say if you throw a ball hard against the wall, it comes back hard. Exactly. If you throw it soft, it comes back soft. And we're just walking from church, mm-hmm. So then they're stunned why the community may be hesitant to cooperate with you.
Yeah.
And I really think that in the police academy, just as you teach them how to use a firearm, you should teach them how not to use a firearm. I'm just kind of sad you have to teach people that, mm-hmm. but teach them how to talk and respect other people. And you get more cooperation.
I think so. I think you definitely would. Okay, so the indictment in this particular case, initially was sealed, but now it's unsealed. So we have the indictment here, and man, it is a detailed one. So we're gonna go through this, talk about this, and then see what we got. So the first 2 counts are similar: stalking. I mean, that's well. First of all, the complaint here they're using it's a federal complaint. So this is the one from that the United States District Court, Southern District of New York, the federal courts are filing. The difference too is
and what's the complaint?
The complaint is a document that's used to let the accused know what they're charged with or what they're accused of. It's not evidence, but it's a document so you can know, what the government is accusing me of. Now, the important thing about these federal charges is that in being charged in federal court as opposed to state court in New York, he's now facing death.
Big mistake.
Big mistake. Why you say that?
Well, what I'm saying is, in a case like this, even though during a trial, a jury is at that time is not supposed to consider the punishment, but prior to trial, they're going to be aware that he's facing death.
They are.
So potential jurors, regardless of the evidence, going to say, "Well, I don't want this guy to be sentenced to death." I think that's just, I just a bad tactical move.
You're right. The jurors aren't supposed to know what the sentence can be for a case, but they absolutely will, because there's all this talk about it. They're gonna know beforehand. You know, they have the internet. They're gonna be able to look things up. Possible jurors. I'm sure by the time this case gets to trial,
And the defense attorneys will probably bring it up casually through in.
Oh yeah, casually. But it's gonna be difficult to find a juror or someone who doesn't, because the prosecution are gonna want to look for people that haven't heard about this. The defense attorneys, they're gonna want anybody that's heard about this because they're probably gonna be more sympathetic.
And think about it, I think it's Dylan, of the young white teenager who went into the Baptist church and killed 9 people. He wasn't sentenced to death. If I may be wrong.
I don't think he was. No.
But see, that's what I'm talking about. You have potential jurors who say, well, you have one person who killed who killed 9 average people, didn't get death. Now you have one person killing a famous or wealthy person. Now you're asking for death. I think they should rethink that.
Yeah. But the first 2 counts are pretty self-explanatory. Stalking, we all know it's the common term of stalking. It's common, or what we think it is. Or saying that he followed the CEO with the intent to kill or injure him, and it placed him. But you already used that word. You know what I said? It placed him in fear of that, right? So how are they going to prove that?
They can't.
They can't prove
He
it.
didn't see it coming.
No. He didn't know the guy was following him. He didn't file any reports to say that he was following him or he knew this guy was stalking him in any way.
Like we said, keep it simple, because why? You could just present evidence that he was stalking.
Right.
You don't have to charge him with stalking, because just that's evidence of stalking.
Yes.
So you just put more weight on yourself by trying to prove up stalking.
Right.
Because if they get in the habit of saying, okay, count 1, he wasn't stalking him, because how would he place him in reasonable fear if he knew it was coming? Okay, not guilty on that. You don't want to get in, okay, then not guilty, then not guilty. So just keep it simple.
Yeah. Yep. And so this sort of goes back to my original theory too. So even with these first 2 counts, the way the federal authorities are able to get involved in this case, because he traveled between states, interstate. He went from state to state,
And he used the cell phone and all that other
So the
stuff.
federal authorities
And the highways.
So the federal authorities are able to get involved. But again, this still, I think, goes back to my original theory in that he wanted to get caught. He wanted to bring attention to this. He wanted people to know what he did, because it seems like he would be smart enough to know.
He went to Princeton.
Yeah.
So
I think he might have went to Penn or something. One of those, Ivy League.
Yeah. And he was a valedictorian.
Yeah.
And back to your point is, he's not a dummy.
Correct.
So I talk to people all the time and say, why did he do this? Just average. Why did he do this? Why did he take the mask down? If you're a smart person, you wouldn't have done anything. He is a smart person. So I think he would have done a better job. Like you said, he wanted to get caught.
Yeah. And so I would think he'd be smart enough to know if he goes from state to state that now he's bringing in federal authorities. But again, I think that's what he wanted. So those first 2 counts pretty self-explanatory. But we think it's superfluous. They don't need those extra charges. Just get straight to the meat. When you talk about keep it simple, I learned an expression years ago called KISS. I would say I'll give my work a kiss, and generically keep it simple, stupid. So that's why I tell myself all the time, if I ever feel like I'm talking too much or doing too much, I say in my head, give it a kiss. Keep it simple, stupid.
Well, on a side note, that applies to a lot of things. You had the M16
Yeah.
And you had the AK-47 during Vietnam. The M16 was notorious for jamming because it was very complex. It had like all these parts. The AK-47, the inventor, he said the reason why it was robust and could fire in mud and sand because he kept it really simple. It only had so many parts, and they were only a few parts,
Wow.
like 7 or 8 parts. So keep it simple. You don't want potential jurors to do this mental gymnastics.
Right.
Just say he fired the gun, he shot him, he died. And you can just argue the whole stalking thing.
Sure.
Just argue it.
Sure. Because if you give a good defense attorney more to work with, usually it turns out to the defense's advantage. So then count 3, murder through the use of a firearm. It's pretty simple as well.
That's a good count right there.
That's a good count. And then we have count 4, which is the firearms offense. Explain that one, Ricky.
Like in the state of Illinois, a firearm, I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. A pistol, a rifle, an assault rifle, whatever. But usually with the firearm offenses, usually the charges are enhanced.
Right.
If I just beat you with a baseball bat and kill you, in Illinois, murder's 20 to 60. But in the use of a firearm, there enhanced penalties. We call it 15, 20, 25 to life.
Right.
If you charge with murder and you just had the gun, they have to add 15 years to the minimum, which is 35 years. If you shoot someone and you kill them, you're doing 65 to life. So they put that element in, I think probably, I'm not familiar with the federal laws, right, but I'm assuming possible enhancements.
Yes, exactly. Strange fact is that the United States of America is why it's called United States of America. And originally when it was, first cobbled together, the idea was that each state was almost its own separate entity, its own separate
country. Almost its own country, yeah.
So in line with that, every state has their own particular gun laws. So if you're traveling from one state to another, you may be able to have a gun in one state, and you may not be licensed to have a gun in the next state over, which I think is a problem. But Congress, of course, it's a discussion for another day, but Congress, of course, won't set up stringent federal gun guidelines for various reasons.
Well, if you get married and have a license, you can go to any state. No one say, hey, you weren't married if you got married in Illinois and
right,
then you go to Vegas, it's, you can have a license.
Yeah.
But as far as a gun, nope.
No, it's different. It's different. Some states
your license means nothing here. Gun
Yep,
license means nothing here.
Absolutely. Okay, so those are the charges so far. They're very self-explanatory, very simple. But and this is just the beginning. More can be added. More can really be added. More will be added. They're throwing out the terrorist acts that they seem like they want to add there. What's the point in that? Adding murder.
That's a political move.
Yeah.
That's all. We've seen it. I've seen it where in state court where they have over 100 counts, which I always thought was really dumb.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense because you're not gonna when you go to trial, you're gonna dismiss 98 of them or something.
And if you keep them, the jury's gonna be so bored, like, no, whatever.
Yeah, it's too many counts.
It's too many. I'm not reading all this.
No, it's ridiculous. Okay, but what I thought was interesting with the indictment here is this timeline. It's very detailed from where they, basically from when he first gets there to when he leaves. So it says on November 24th, 2024, at approximately 10:11 p.m., the shooter arrived in New York City on an inner-city bus at the Port Authority Bus Terminal, Manhattan. The bus originated in Atlanta, Georgia. The shooter took a taxi to the area around the Midtown Hotel and stayed in the area for approximately 1 hour before taking a taxi to a hostel located in the Upper West Side of Manhattan. The shooter registered at the hostel under the name Mark Rosario and provided a false New Jersey driver's license as a form of identification. And then they show a photograph of the false New Jersey ID. So it's a New Jersey ID with the name Mark Rosario, some address, and his picture. So this is very detailed, just in regards to they're able to track all of his actions and what he's doing, and this is, for all intents and purposes, without help from the public. How are they able to figure this out?
Because they took all the detectives off the other previous murders. It said, put them on the back burner. This is more important.
Exactly. So it doesn't. I mean, they say in the indictment here they don't. They're not going to give up all the information right now at this point. Details are going to come out later. But it's unknown. Well, actually, we'll see later that this kid wasn't using this. The alleged, the accused, he wasn't using credit cards. He was using cash. But somehow they were able to figure out that he took a bus, and that the bus originated in Atlanta. It could be from camera footage, from around the particular areas. It could be from maybe tracking a cell phone or something to that effect. I think this is technology being put to use as opposed to just old school kind of police work in that regard.
Pounding the pavement.
Right. So when the shooter was checking into the hostel, the desk clerk asked the shooter to remove his mask, which he did, revealing his face to a security camera shown below. So they show a picture of that. And other than this interaction with the desk clerk, the shooter consistently kept his mask on throughout his time to New York, including while inside the hostel. So he was smart enough, he kept his mask on at all times, pretty much. But for some reason, the clerk asked him to take his mask down. I don't know what's going on there. But he did it. Do you think when he did that, he was thinking about, what he was doing? Or was that something that he just did in the moment?
I think in the moment, maybe he figured, hey, I got away.
Right.
And then people let their guards down.
Right. Yeah.
Again, he's not an assassin. This guy's not an assassin. He may be smart, but that'll make you an assassin.
Right. It's
because if it was me, I'm on the first thing going south.
Right. As soon as
So I'm gone. I'm out.
As soon as after it happens. That's why it just leads to, if he's smart enough to get a fake ID, but the fake ID had his picture on. I guess that's the only way you're gonna know. You can't pass up a fake ID without using your own picture, I guess. But it's almost seemed. I mean, maybe it wasn't that he necessarily wanted to get caught. Maybe he just wasn't very good at being a criminal. He may be a smart guy, but just not very good at being a criminal.
Well, I mean, if you lived in a privileged environment, like I said, growing up on the West Side, you see this stuff. You kind of got an idea, even though you're not involved in it, you kind of got an idea how this stuff works.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Right. So
he probably has a very limited, outside of television, which is not real, how this is done.
Right. Exactly.
And sometimes I remember there was 2 University of Chicago students who wanted to know, I forgot their names, I think it was in the 20s, wanted to know how it feels to kill someone. So they just picked this kid up and killed him.
Wow.
And they felt that they were so smart with University of Chicago. The police would never catch us because we're smarter than them. Right. So maybe he thinks, hey, I'm smart. They're not going to catch me.
It's possible.
What was the phrase you said? Arrogance is.
I don't remember this.
Yeah, sometimes arrogance is a weakness.
Yes.
If you get overly confident.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
That you let your guard down.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wonder why he didn't shoot. If he just shot him in the back, if he wanted to kill him, because you shoot somebody in the back won't necessarily kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't he walk up to him? If you're going to kill him, shoot him in the head.
Maybe he didn't want him dead. Maybe he just wanted to shoot him to prove a point, to prove that this could happen. Or maybe shot him in the back, hoping that he would receive a similar back injury to what he had.
I think he got something there.
Yeah. Maybe that's what he wanted.
He has to wait 6 months to get that back surgery.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't want to pick light of it, but this kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And that's what defense attorneys, they don't follow this A plus B. You have to think outside the box.
Absolutely.
And examine these cases. And to me, that sounds legit.
Yeah, it could work. So
I didn't want to kill him. I just want him to feel I mean, if I wanted to kill him, I would have walked up and did a double shot to his head.
Right.
I want him to be in the same situation I was, alive with back problems.
Oh, that could
And that may
carry the day.
carry the day. Because some people like, see, I told you. He didn't want to kill him.
Yeah. All right. So on December 4th, 2024, at 5:35 a.m., the shooter left the hostel wearing the gray backpack. And that's the backpack I was talking about. That was an expensive backpack, apparently. It cost, a lot of money. So which kind of leads to this guy has some money.
And he threw away the bag.
He did.
So that means he really has a lot of money.
Yeah, he has a lot.
Because I'm not
That would
throwing
get
that
a lot of
bag
trouble,
away.
yes, keeping the bag. And so he rode an electric bike down Central Park West to
Those
a
are expensive.
location near the Midtown Hotel. So then they have video of that. They have video of him riding the bike. They have video of him walking with the backpack. And this looks to just be random. This video here just seems to be video on someone's surrounding store or residential area. And then they have another video here which looks to be a traffic camera. At 5:41 a.m., the shooter walked around the area of Midtown Hotel and at one point purchased items from a nearby coffee shop. The shooter then returned to a bench in the vicinity of Midtown Hotel, and at least on one occasion prior to the murder, the shooter was depicted using a cell phone. So all these things, if they're able to see it, and we see the footage here, it's cameras. So I think this same kind of investigation, these same kind of things should be used and pursued more often in any crime. But it just doesn't happen.
Well, he waited around. Maybe he's like one of those guys who they set fire to a house, pyromaniacs.
Yeah.
And they come back and they kind of want to see how everybody's responded. Maybe he sat around to see, hey, let's see what the police is doing.
Mm-hmm. Could be. But
This is powerful evidence.
Yeah.
What do you think a possible defense is? I thought about maybe possible insanity.
Yeah, it could be. It could be an insanity issue. I don't know in particular what, legal insanity and, what we think about insanity
Exactly.
are different standards. Legally for insanity, you just have to, in essence, you have to be able to help in your defense and you have to be able to understand what you're being charged with. If you can do those two things for the most part, they'll say you can, you're okay to stand trial and you're not insane if you have those things going on.
Or you have to be able to know between right and wrong. Is that one?
Yeah, that's something that's part of it. But in essence, just, if you're charged with murder, if I ask you, you know what you're charged with? Yeah, I'm being accused of murder. Okay.
No, I'm saying whether he was insane at the time that he committed the murder.
Right. Yeah, could be.
I mean, because this is powerful evidence.
It's a lot of things going on here. This is all before, the shooting. So then at about 6:45 a.m., after waiting near the Midtown Hotel for approximately an hour.
Planning. That's like planning.
Yeah, the shooter saw and approached the victim, shot the victim multiple times, and then fled on foot to West 55th Street, where the shooter mounted the electric bike and rode towards Central Park. After disappearing inside the park for a period of time, the shooter was captured on video again, exiting the park near West 77th Street and Central Park West, riding north on Central Park West. When he emerged from the park, the shooter was no longer carrying the gray backpack. So then they have pictures of both of that. Him riding down the street and then pictures of him leaving the park
early in the morning
without the book bag. I mean, these types of things, it seems as though, there are cameras everywhere nowadays. There are cameras everywhere. There's footage everywhere.
Cell phones. Cameras.
This should be able to be done on any case. But, it's just not. So then they see him coming out without the backpack. And then about 6:58, security footage captures the shooter riding an electric bike near West 85th Street and Columbus Avenue. 2 minutes later, at approximately 7 in the morning, this one really crap. The shooter was captured on video walking near West 86th Street and Columbus without the bike. Then at 7:04, he gets into a taxi. They have a video or picture of him in that taxi. It's very clear. It's very clear. He's poking his head through that back of the taxi there, and this is amazing. I mean, he's right there. He's just poking his head through, saying, "Take me here or here."
Insanity defense.
The way he pokes his face through, it's almost like, "Hey, look at me." When I get into a taxi, you don't poke your head in between the little part there.
What same person would do all this? Provide clearly obvious evidence of his guilt, unless you were temporarily insane.
Yep, something isn't right. Something's not right with him. Absolutely.
You can't call him smart and stupid at the same time. It's one or the other. I won't say stupid, but
mentally incapacitated.
Exactly. Okay.
I think the government's probably going to frame him as a calculated criminal mastermind,
which is or assassin.
Yes. They're gonna say these steps he took were the steps of a cold, calculated killer. Of a cold, calculated killer, and he made the choice to make these blah blah. But, we can both do prosecutors' opening and closing statements because more often than not they're similar. I mean, they're kind of canned and recycled.
Kind of corny.
Yeah, they can be. But I think this is the way that he's going to be painted. They're going to paint him as this mastermind.
They're predictable. The arguments are if they were smarter, they should just embrace it. This is a young kid. Address him how he is. A young kid who got so desperate, he decided to kill this guy.
Yep.
Instead of calling him assassin, this silly name, assassin calculator. He went to Princeton. Mm-hmm. That don't mean you're necessarily smart. You might be a legacy.
Right. That's true.
That doesn't mean anything.
True, absolutely.
So I think if they were smart and stopped doing a television prosecution, treat this like a regular murder case. Mm-hmm. And the indication that they're not going to do that is in some of these charges.
Yeah. So then he gets into this taxi at 7:04. It drove him to the George Washington Bridge terminal in the vicinity of West 179th Street and Fort Washington Avenue in Upper Manhattan. At about 7:30, video footage from the George Washington Bridge bus terminal captured the shooter entering the bus terminal. No footage showed him leaving the bus terminal, which suggested, okay, he left New York. On about December 6, 2024, law enforcement officers searching Central Park found a gray backpack matching the appearance of the gray backpack worn by the shooter. So he leaves, he has his backpack, and he just leaves it in the park. Again, this might go towards your thoughts of some type of insanity. Did he think that they wouldn't find this backpack because he put it in Central Park? Well, what's going on there? Why leave the backpack?
Yeah, that's not the signs of a highly sophisticated assassin.
No, not at all. Not at all. So what really leads to the culmination of all this, which sort of ties up the thought that the accused here just wasn't right. Where is he caught at the end of all this? McDonald's, the hideout of all trained assassins, a McDonald's in Pennsylvania. He's just sitting at the McDonald's. He's just there hanging out, and that's when he is then identified by an employee there at Altoona, Pennsylvania. That's where he was. Police show up at the McDonald's. They show up at the McDonald's, and what does he have on him? The fake ID?
He could have dumped that a long time ago.
Oh, and the gun.
I just think the prosecution, I hope they don't get comfortable and say, because the evidence is pretty powerful.
It is.
But don't get comfortable thinking that because you have all this good evidence, good defense attorneys may attack this.
Yeah.
What person would keep the gun?
Yes.
No, what person think they're going to dump it and it's not going to be found? Or ride a bicycle in public, or not leave right away. I'm telling you, they should not be comfortable with this. I don't think it's a dead bang winner.
Well, another thing that sort of goes to my theory that he wanted to be caught. Also, along with all of his stuff, he had a notebook, and he also had something called, he had a letter addressed to the feds. I quote, he had a letter addressed to the feds. And,
Dear feds.
it said the letter was addressed. It said to the feds. So he had a letter with him, and he had a notebook.
Oh.
A notebook
No,
full of complaints about the healthcare system.
He's innocent. He can say dear feds.
Oh, that's true. That's true. It's not proper grammar he didn't use there. Writing a letter. So, I mean, he had the weapon, he had the fake ID, and then he has this notebook with all of these complaints about the health and a letter to the feds.
Is that like a handwritten confession?
Yeah, basically, it is a handwritten confession. So, yeah, I mean, you know, I think he wanted to be caught, but I also think that, yeah, you're right, and that he wasn't clearly, this wasn't necessarily the machinations of a criminal mastermind, but just the meandering of someone with mental health issues, probably. That's what it seems to be. When the feds did speak to his mother didn't seem to be surprised that he did this because, you know, of the behavior that they saw he was exhibiting over time. They lost contact with him, reported him missing, so she wasn't necessarily surprised that this could happen.
That's kind of scary.
That is scary. But, you know, if you think about it as a parent, you know, what she did, she reported him missing. What else could she do?
Nothing.
There's nothing else.
And he's an adult.
He's an adult. So there's nothing else can be done there. But I'm just amazed at the detail that they were able to amass in such a quick and short amount of time.
I was stunned when they said we got him. I was like, what?
that was fast.
What?
That was fast. That was fast. I mean, my bike got stolen in 1983.
They still ain't found it.
I never seen my Huffy. I don't know.
Was it a 5-speed?
Oh, no, it's gone. It's gone. I missed that bike. So this notebook, it contains several handwritten pages that express hostility towards the health insurance industry and wealthy executives in particular. For example, the notebook contained the following statements and entries that appeared to correspond to particular dates. In an entry marked as August 15th, the notebook described how the details are finally coming together, and I'm glad in a way that I procrastinated because it allowed me to learn more about it was a company. The notebook also stated that the target is insurance because it checks every box. What is it? I mean, so these are unusual musings.
Well, they may say, oh, we have a handwritten confession, but that may be signs of a person with mental illness.
Absolutely. This is unusual. These are unusual ramblings here.
Because most people, if they're going to commit a murder, they're going to take every steps to get away with it.
Right.
He's not doing that.
No.
I mean, they didn't have to put him in a room and Mirandize him. He confessed before they even captured him.
It's already here. I mean, so they have the motive, they have the means, and he has the opportunity. So it's everything seems to all be here. But like you're saying, they shouldn't sit back on their laurels and
don't bust up with a champagne yet.
Yeah.
Because you have sympathy,
mm-hmm.
and I think the defense attorney, like I said, she's a former prosecutor for the Southern District of New York. She's probably real smart.
Mm-hmm.
She's not new at this.
Yeah.
So I think the prosecution, this is not going to be easy for them. I don't think so.
No.
And if that was an average person, I'm like, oh, he's going down. You know what I'm saying? You might want to negotiate a plea or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But in this particular case, they shouldn't bust out with a champagne yet.
No. So there was another entry marked October 22nd. The notebook stated 1.5 months. This investor conference is a true windfall. And most importantly, the message becomes self-evident. Later on in the entry, the notebook describes an intent to whack the CEO of one of the insurance companies at its investor conference. As described above, October 22nd is approximately 6 weeks before the date of the murder. So he writes that he wants to whack. whack. The simple
Kill.
Kill the old mob term. He wants to whack the CEO of one of the insurance companies at its investors conference. This is what he writes in the notebook.
So that means that he had probably more than one target.
Right. It's just that CEO happened to
Show
walk
up.
Yeah.
So he must have. Of course, they're going to look at his internet because he's probably looking up a lot of other CEOs.
Right.
But hey, he saw this one. Hey, here we go.
Yeah. The letter recovered says, the alleged shooter wrote, "I wasn't working with anyone. This was fairly trivial. Some elementary social engineering because basic CAD, CAD, a lot of patience. Based on my own research, I believe that, so that's what he wrote. And the Fed said they believe that CAD refers to computer-aided design, which that's what CAD is.
Is it the 3D?
Yeah, computer-aided design is, you draw the little pictures and shorts in CAD.
Dude, I just got rid of my VCR, dude. I don't know anything. I just threw it with my solar calculator. You talking about CAD.
Yeah.
Is that the 3D we was talking about, or is that something different?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I think they said he made the gun with 3D, which I think is, I
think that's what they thought initially, but in looking at, we have the picture.
You have to be a gunsmith to do something like that.
Look at the picture here. This looks like a
regular
gun.
Regular firearm.
Yes.
And he fashioned a silencer on it.
Yeah.
But you have to have some skill level to be able to manufacture a gun, to mill a gun.
Absolutely, and then to actually work.
Exactly.
Then he wrote his letter. P.S. You can.
He said P.S.
P.S. P.S.
At least he's polite.
Yeah. You can check serial numbers to verify this is all self-funded. My own ATM withdrawals.
So that means he's admitting that he worked alone.
Yeah.
Or he didn't work alone, but he wants to take all the blame for it.
Yes. Yeah, this is it's an unusual case, but of course, we've seen a lot of murder over the years. Not personally, but just in our professions, and the part that irks me, as I've already stated, is so many resources are put into the murder of one individual instead of using those same resources for every individual that loses their life. So the shooter, his next court appearance is set for January 18th. Of course, the legal proceedings will unfold from here. This case is going to continue, I think, to cause conversations and to fuel national discussions. Just on
as it should.
Yeah, the healthcare system, ethical considerations of vigilantism, and corporate influence on healthcare accessibility. I mean, the vigilante part. I don't see that as something that will become commonplace, because most people most people I think value their freedom.
Exactly.
They value their freedom, and who wants to? It'll be difficult to find a cause that you are so passionate about, you're willing to give your freedom for.
Well, those tend to be extreme groups.
Yes.
But I think most people just want to maneuver through life and be left alone and treated correctly.
Right, exactly.
They may have passions or opinions about something that comes up, but most people are not going to, they have too much to do. They had to raise their children, they got to go to work, and they're not going to give that up by, doing stuff like this.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I agree. Well, we're going to continue to look at this case. We're going to continue to follow what happens. Do
you think they're going to prosecute this very quickly, or?
Oh, I think they're gonna push this through fast. Okay. I think they're gonna go full force on this, and they're gonna want to get this to trial quickly. And I hope he does go to trial.
Absolutely, and if possible, but they don't allow cameras in federal court, correct?
No.
They should.
They should. That's where you get all those sketchings, the
exactly.
drawings and sorts.
The person doesn't look like the sketch.
No. my sketch. My
Oh yeah, you do have a
yeah,
sketch.
sketch it. I have to get it and
You look like 30 pounds heavier.
Yeah,
on
it
the
was
sketch.
like I was like, what does this mean? What does this mean for me? Jeez Louise. I was like, who is this? But it was me. My head looked huge. But no, they're not allowed. But I hope he does go to trial, and because it would be, I think it would be a interesting look into human nature, the thoughts and the nature of people in the United States and the legal justice system as a whole.
And the healthcare system, because it's tied into this. So when they're going to be reporting the murder, they're going to be reporting the healthcare industry at the same time.
So really, if the
and the healthcare industry is on trial too.
well, I was just about to say that if the defense attorneys are, and they seem to, I'm sure they're smart, accomplished folk, that they're going to put the healthcare system on trial, and that's what this is going to become about. And if that's the case,
I know
that's tough. That's tough. Well, all right. Well, thank you for joining us for another show here. Subscribe, hit like, follow us, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, TikTok, the Instagram, all those social media things. Follow us. We're there and get more content like this. Thank you.
Thank you.